Hey, brothers and sisters from the Starknet ecosystem. Welcome back to the Stark Cafe. This is Nur Star speaking, your personal Stark barista. And once again, we are ready to delight you with some very special Starknet content. Well, my friends, it's a great pleasure to start this special week at the Stark Cafe, as during the next 5 days, we're going to explore the amazing work that the Nethermind team has been doing on Starknet in terms of both chain infrastructure and educational initiatives for developers. So get ready for 4 high-quality sessions, all taking place at 3 p.m. UTC today, tomorrow, on Wednesday, and coming to an end this Friday. Having said that, let's get down on the NethermindStark week by introducing the guest of its first session, named Nethermind's Journey Through Starknet. And who's better than their co-CTO, Jorik, aka Mempool Surfer, to take us for a ride throughout Nethermind and their building approach on Starknet. So enough for the intro, let's welcome Jorik to the Stark Cafe. Hello Jorik, welcome. How do you feel?
Hello, Nestar. Thanks for having me on. I'm actually very, very excited to be here because I think Nethermind's story is a long one and it shares a lot of history with Starknet. So it would be nice to add some color on this front and then set the stage for the upcoming episodes where we discuss a lot of the cool technical aspects of what we're doing. So, yeah.
Awesome, Jorik. It's, great to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to starting this magic NethermindStark week ahead of us. And let's begin it with an icebreaker. Jorik, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself in terms of tech background? And eventually, could you explain to those of us who are still not very familiar with blockchain infrastructure players what Nethermind is, and which is the role and the mission that that you at Nethermind are fulfilling on the overall Ethereum blockchain ecosystem and on the scaling solutions that are building on it. The floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I can take you through that. So my background is quite a humble one. I studied computer science at the University of Cambridge, and there I had a distinct interest in networking and programming languages. And I worked for a little bit for Matrix.org, which is a decentralized communication system. Decentralized as in federated systems, not as in crypto. And from there, I started working at Nethermind on the Warp team during its very early days, and eventually started leading that team, and then took on leading the Starknet initiatives within Nethermind. And as the relationship with Starknet progressed, the size of the Starknet team grew to such a point that it actually made sense to move up to co-CTO and represent like a large section of the company. And it really represents the one of our absolute core initiatives at Nethermind, right? Because Nethermind is quite a large company. What a blockchain infrastructure company does is kind of complicated. It covers everything in the stack. I think the best way to put it is that we believe strongly in Ethereum's values, and we want to scale it in any way that we can. So Starknet is a perfect example of this, right? We see this as a genuine way to bring the benefits of Ethereum to as many people as possible, which sounds like a bit of a cliche, but everyone really believes that here. And what we do is we align with ecosystems that we think are genuinely net positive for the Ethereum goal. And then we try to solve every difficult problem that we can find along the way that we have the skills to solve. So we want to build clients like the Ethereum client for Nethermind's client for Ethereum, or the Juno client for Starknet. We want to help on application layer development with any people who are learning about the ecosystem. We provide node infrastructure facilities, we host nodes, we take part in data availability committees, and we also provide security services. And so we try to come with a holistic set of tools to any ecosystem that we do. And for that, we've been working very hard on bringing this to Starknet. And then in the Starknet ecosystem specifically, we have we've tried to help the Starknet Foundation as much as possible. We've given them some people to help design their governance process, specifically building the contracts for this and working with the community. We sponsor a bunch of events around the world, like Starknet CC. We also host London meetups. So if you're in London, come visit us, please. We'd love to see you there. And we also have a massive internship program, and the goal there is to try and bring on as many people as we can into, well, actually just into blockchain over like either Ethereum or Starknet, and we give them free rein to explore any of the projects and just let them make the connections with the community that they need to move on from us, right? We actually don't want to limit their choices. We want to give them an opportunity to grow from Nethermind. So that's a full background on what blockchain infrastructure is. It's just a very broad term to say we love blockchain and we're working on the cool problems. So
yeah, that's awesome, Jorik. I mean, personally, being in the crypto world since 2019, I've always been fascinated by the Nethermind's work, even though, I have my technical limits, but, I've always heard great things about Nethermind by, the fundamentals driven content creators. So I watched some videos where you explained different pieces of infrastructure about Ethereum, and you've always been a very reliant partner of the Ethereum Foundation as well. So you've been playing a very important role also on the protocol level on about Ethereum. And therefore, congratulations for that. And we really hope, and we are already seeing that you are bringing a lot of experience on the Starknet ecosystem as well. And having said that, after listening to this thorough introduction about Nethermind, it's now time to begin this Starknet journey along the different tools and services that Nethermind has been building on Starknet since its inception back in Q4 2021. Therefore, Jorik, I think that before talking about the work carried out by Nethermind on Starknet, it would be nice to hear how Nethermind approached this scaling solution in particular on a conceptual level, and what were the first impressions about working on it and on its programming language, Cairo. Seeing that, I suppose that Starknet has been the first official non-EVM related experience for Nethermind, and correct me if I'm wrong. So please me a bit about this.
Sure. I think the non-EVM nature of the network is probably like the least tricky part of Starknet. So I wasn't there when the team first approached Starknet, but I do have a lot of context on how people felt about it and what they went through in the early days. And in this case, I think the first gotcha would be the ZK part, right? Like it's not so much like how the ZK works. That's a difficult question that people have put a lot of time into here, and they spent a lot of time like studying field arithmetic and FRI and all of the different bells and whistles that go into snarks and starks. But the question that was the most interesting for us is like, how does that actually affect the security guarantees of the network and the scaling capabilities of the network, right? Because for us, our mission is to like expand the scaling capabilities of Ethereum as part of our partnership with Starknet. So on that front, it became an interesting question on like which security guarantees are offered by having L1. Like you have proof of integrity by the ZK Stark, but you can also make sure that the entrance into the distributed like validator set is always guaranteed up to the security of Ethereum by keeping that on L1. And like having lots of these discussions with Starkware in the early days to figure out what their actual intentions were and how they saw the security like being distributed between L1 and L2, right? Because at that point, I think the team had lots of different choices. They could have decided that like the best way to go was app chains, or the best way to go was side chains, and like what is the difference between an L2 and a side chain, right? So those are the interesting questions. On the Cairo front, that was a remarkable evolution, and we actually got involved with this in a heavy way in Warp at the very start, because I think Starkware were the first to prove that you could make a general purpose programming language that didn't need a custom circuit built for it to prove the computation correct. You could just have one circuit which proves over general computation, and that was a pretty great idea. And the language that they developed for that was like the first example of this working, which was amazing. And to that end, we wanted to demonstrate that this language was as general as people expected. So we built Warp to show that Solidity could be compiled and deployed in Cairo, and that the systems were equivalent to to Ethereum in some way, right? And this was a very important thing to demonstrate. All the while, Cairo 0 being, I'm not going to say it was a difficult language. I know a lot of people had a lot of difficulty with it, but it was a very awkward language to work with. Just by virtue of being so early and not having any compiler tooling built around it. So we had a lot of fun with that language at the start, actually, and a lot of really, really strange hacks to get things working. I have to say it was probably some of the funnest times I had at Nethermind was working on the early Cairo 0 stuff.
Thanks a lot, Jorik. I mean, it was very remarkable that Nethermind was like a pioneer in dealing with the Cairo programming language, and you've been building a lot of infrastructure around it, and also educational resources that we'll be speaking about in a dedicated episode at the end of this NethermindStark week. And yeah, it's all praises also for deciding to focus a lot on Starknet and to seeing potential on it. And right now we can finally get deep on the rich technical stack that the Nethermind team has been building on Starknet. In fact, I'd like to know when and how you started working on this layer two, which were the technical challenges that you had to face at the beginning, and which were the first tools that you developed during the first months of work on Starknet?
Sure. Well, the relationship started with Tomasz, our CEO, going to a ZK workshop, I believe, and then meeting Louis Gutmann, who is the interface of a lot of Starknet, and introing him to the Starkware team. And then from there, I think he went to the first Starkware at Home Sessions 101, which is like the absolute earliest, smallest versions of like the Starknet Starkware sessions, actually, or like the Starknet CC. And at that point, we proposed to start working in that ecosystem. And I think, and I'm sure Tomasz will correct me in a tweet on this if I'm wrong about the vision here, but the original vision was to build the block explorer, Voyager, through which we could start building up our expertise in Starknet and understand like the underlying architecture and the design decisions going into the network. So we started with the Explorer. And that was actually quite tricky at the time because the RPCs and the way that the network worked just kept shifting around, just by virtue of being like so early. Like it was barely even functioning at this point. And then from there, we saw the need to prove that like Cairo 0 was ready. So then the Warp project started, which we used as a showcase really to demonstrate like, I think one of its greatest successes was like the Uniswap compilation, where we showed like, okay, Uniswap v3, one of the most complicated protocols on Ethereum, like works flawlessly on Starknet, right? The performance characteristics are nowhere near what it would be if you wrote it by hand, but you can see that there is a semantic equivalence here, like they are the same program and they work. So I think that was that was covered in a lot of different blog posts, and I think that was quite a strong signal saying like, okay, like you can definitely develop on Starknet. And then we thought, okay, well, we have all these expertise in building full nodes. Like that is actually what we've done. This is the genesis of our company. So we started building on Juno to create a full node, which for the time being will just give you permissionless way to access Starknet data, and that's a bit of the future roadmap, which we'll get into later on in the questions. But right now allows you to validate all the blocks are correct and that the verification is working and have access to the full state history. So that's kind of the process. Like we built up the skills, we worked on Voyager, and then we picked up Warp, we picked up Juno. And then from that, we're actually going back and like improving Voyager massively because now we know so much more about the system and what users are actually interested in. And I think we're improving on all fronts at the moment. So that's the history of us working with them. Yeah. If you have any more questions on those, yeah. we can get it.
Yeah, fair enough, Jorik, no worries. And I mean, a very interesting overview about the tools that you're building, that you started building on Starknet since its early days. And well, dear listeners, I hope you're enjoying this NethermindStark week as much as I'm doing. And I'll take advantage to shout out to some of you. Hey, Starknet Chongguo, the Nethermind, hello, Anneli, who helped us a lot in organizing this NethermindStark week. Hello to the Starknet Astro community, Fabio Catalao, a very well-known educator about Starknet in the Portuguese-speaking community. Then I see a lot of faces from the Nethermind team as well, Chi, BD, Rodrigo, Anywhere, whom we'll have the pleasure to host at the end of the week to speak about some educational resources around the Cairo programming languages. And a big hug to all the other live listeners who have taken some of their precious time to be with us today. Having said that, Jorik, would you also guide us through the other tools and services that you've been crafting for the Starknet ecosystem? So, for example, also like the services that you offer when it comes to security, maybe also talking a bit more about the NethermindStark tools.
Yeah, sure. So we have quite a lot. Sometimes I struggle to keep it all in my head. In terms of security, we have an auditing team which has trained up on Cairo Zero a few years ago and has completed quite a number of Cairo Zero audits successfully. And this week has started, or no, was it last week? Yeah, last week has started the first official Cairo 1 audit, which will near completion like in a handful of weeks. So that's a pretty big deal. So the team is a proficient solidity auditing team. They learned Cairo 0, and then they went through the process of learning Cairo 1 before all the docs were ready, before any of the tooling was ready, so that they could be ready for anybody who was a fast learner and was sprinting to get to mainnet as quickly as possible after Cairo 1 stabilized. We also have a formal verification team, which, I might explain to listeners, write formal mathematical specifications about how your protocol should work, and then prove that your implementation follows the specification exactly, right? Like that there's no room for error. They built Horus, which was a formal verification tool in Cairo 0, and it's something that we're looking to implement again for Cairo 1 once we feel like there's enough demand for this tool. And then more like holistically, we offer a lot of Cairo development services to various companies because right now the Starknet space is full of very impassioned like new developers. But we want to facilitate some of the maybe like the larger, more cautious players who'd like to move into the space and want to rely on some experts' advice here. So a consultancy really on the Cairo development. And then in terms of tooling, we've got Juno, which is the full node, which we'll talk about plenty tomorrow, so I won't get into it that much. I really recommend listening to that because it's going to be quite an interesting conversation of what's on the roadmap. It's a very exciting time, especially after 0.12. The roadmap shifts quite dramatically. Then on Voyager, which is our block explorer, which we started on very early. I've mentioned it before, but what we're working on for a bit over the last few weeks is API services and indexing, and we'll be offering our SQL endpoint, which is a bit of a pre-announcement alpha for you guys. So you can do a lot of your indexing like through us rather than hosting your own services. So you heard it here first. And giving the SQL endpoint just allows you to access any data that Voyager already accesses. So if we index something from a particular protocol, you'll have access to it. If we index particular data for our stats, you'll have access to it. This is a pretty cool feature, actually. And then we're working on like the Remix project, which allows you to do compilation in browser. And this is actually a really important project, even though it's like quite a small one in comparison to most, because I think it could allow like exponential adoption. Like people can go to hackathons and just say, you don't need to install anything, just go to this URL and you have like a perfectly working Cairo development like environment. There are others working on similar solutions from the ground up, and they'll probably be able to do kind of like fancier things, but Remix is a known brand. It's something that the Ethereum community trusts, and it's a great conversion tool. So like, go and shill the Remix plugin to your friends. That should be released within the week or next week. We were going to release it last week, but ran into some issues around contract compilation, which we've now fixed, and it's coming live soon. So. And then we've got the Starknet Go tooling, which we've taken on, which is basically just like Starknet Rust, or it was known by the name Kaigo. The idea here is to pick up the full Golang vertical and diversify over languages in the Starknet ecosystem. So if you have any RPC methods that you want to call when you're writing in Go, reach out to us. We'll be extending it with some convenience functions from where it was, because it was an amazing tool, and then it got kind of swamped by Rust. So now we're bringing it back, and we're hoping to bring some Golang developers with us. Then we work on stuff with ENS. We did a Cairo 0 version for them. We will probably be doing the Cairo 1 version for them again. So those conversations are ongoing at the moment. And then we have a bunch of other things like sign in with Starknet and Cairo book, which will all be explained by Any later on in these talks. And that is kind of it on the tooling. We built a sign in with Starknet standard, which is currently in discussion in the forums, so get involved there. And honestly, we just take on little projects that we hand out to interns here, left, right, and center to see what they get up to. So this list is constantly evolving. It would be nice, Northstar, probably to have another conversation in like a few months' time and discuss what all the new things are, if you're interested.
Absolutely, Jorik. We can already schedule it. Anyway, that's a lot of work and a lot of alpha. So thanks a lot also for sharing the news regarding the indexing, the indexing option that you're integrating, that you've integrated on the Voyager block explorer. And thanks a lot for sharing it with our listeners at the Star Cafe. And also a shout out for the great work that you've been doing on the auditing field. And we'll be speaking about that, as you said, like on Wednesday. And you know, some of the most active projects on Starknet have been audited by you. And I've personally heard from them that they really enjoyed the experience and the service. And having said that, you know, right now, let's speak about also one of the most important news and events which will be happening in a couple of days. And I'm speaking about, you know, the Quantum Leap Starknet version, the version 0.12.0, which should be deployed on mainnet on Wednesday UTC evening, if I remember well. And this, you know, I just wanted to know how Nethermind is approaching this disruptive update. And you know, I would also like to know the process to how did you deal with the process of migrating to Cairo 1.0 as the migration began a couple of months ago, and it will culminate with the Regenesis event. So could you explain to us how Nethermind is navigating through these crucial milestone moments, and also feel free to quickly define what both the Quantum Leap version and the Regenesis events mean for Starknet, for its devs, and for its users.
Sure. I might take that in the reverse order, actually, because it might be a little bit easier to follow how those impact Nethermind, actually. So if you've been following the news, which I presume if you're here, you have been, the 0.12 Quantum Leap, or more TPS Daddy, I think maybe we should start dropping that name, that might be an unpopular opinion, is a major step change in the compute available on Starknet. And basically what happened here was that the sequencer that Starknet had implemented was a proof of concept to demonstrate that the proving architecture was incredible, which it is. And the guys from Lambda class stepped in and have rewritten it in Rust and have demonstrated like a much higher capability to handle transactions, right? So for the ecosystem, that means like a number of things. One, your transactions are going to start flying through, which is amazing, and it's going to be a much better user experience. Two, your transactions can actually be significantly more resource intensive, if you like. And I think this is one of the cool things about Starknet that people don't really discuss that much, is like, it's not about cheaper transactions, because once you start going like sub-cent costs, like okay, it's important in certain areas of the world, but for other parts, not so much. And then the question is like, why do you keep going down, right? In aggregate, yes, it becomes cheaper, but the really cool thing is we can actually do way more, right? And that's the part that Starknet really offers is like, can you make significantly more complicated protocols, and not simply in terms of their design, but in the operations that they do, and utilize those, right? So I love to see that in the communities, people developing really cool, weird stuff like interpreters, like Kakarot, but doing the same thing for like RISC-V, or doing alternative projects in calculating long-term averages of like historical price data and stuff like that. So this is the kind of thing that I'd love to see. And that is coming out this week, so I think everyone's very, very excited. And there's even more updates in the future, which will allow more throughput to be available on the network. So just keep watching the space for quite some time. On the Regenesis side, this is an interesting problem that the Starknet network faced in the early days, and was something that actually Nethermind discussed with Starknet a lot when they were trying to figure out how to solve it. The basic problem is that the original Cairo programs could be proven to be correct, but could not be proven to be incorrect. So if you had an assert 1 equals 0, and this caused the Cairo program to revert, basically, you could not prove to the verifier that this program didn't terminate. They just didn't, there was no proof that existed for this, right? That's a huge problem because now I can spam the network with false transactions, transactions which don't terminate, and they have no way of like claiming that I asked for this transaction to happen, because they couldn't prove that this transaction happened, right? And so we were involved in some conversations about like how to handle this. One was an idea of like red-green slashing, green being like you've passed the program, it executed correctly, the proof has gone through, so here's the fee that you pay, is the green fee. Or the program failed, but I don't have a proof for you, so you give me the right to just take the red fee regardless of whether or not the program passed. And this seemed like an okay solution, but not great. And then we proposed something called like red slashing, which is if I could prove that the program should have gone through at a particular place, then they could like take an even higher fee. But it was really ugly. And then Shahar said, "Wait, no, I can build you a language which will always be provable." And this kind of blew some people's minds, but it actually makes a lot of sense. So if you hit this case where you have assert 1 equals 0, instead of having that in the program, we compile it to if 1 equals 0, then do this. Otherwise, gracefully terminate and in a provable way, right? So that change was what basically brought Cairo 1 on. And at the Regenesis event, what we will do is remove all of the Cairo 0 contracts so that finally all computation is provable. So this is a very big thing for the Starknet network. And what resulted of that is the Cairo 0 to Cairo 1 transition, which is a massive language change. And for Nethermind, the biggest aspect here was training up our auditing teams and our Cairo development team. We don't actually have that much Cairo 0 code in production. Our Cairo teams were working a lot with Aave, and we are still in some discussions with them about working on Cairo 1 implementations. But the part that we had to work the most on was training up our auditing team on security vulnerabilities of a brand new language, right? So I think Eni is here, and he worked a lot with those teams and everyone at Nethermind to train them on Cairo 1, and has basically written a lot of resources around this. And he'll be taking you through a lot of this on Thursday, I believe. And it should be a very interesting episode to go through. So if you want to know more about that experience, you should talk to Eni. On the 0.12 front, the only change for Nethermind really was minor changes for the RPC, and then we needed to make sure that Voyager and Juno could just keep up with the new transaction rates. So there have been some internal tests that are happening, and we're hoping that like we will survive the 0.12 transition. I think we will. We have everything in place. And then we will need to consistently work on improving our architecture to be able to keep up with the rate of transactions. And that is what we've been focusing on for the last few weeks. And our like great test will be on Wednesday. So we're very excited for that event. So that's the whole process between Quantum Leap and Regenesis, and both of them are super important in the roadmaps. And it's been been really fun actually to work with Starkware constantly on these problems and bringing them to the network. And I'm really looking forward to the Regenesis event. It's going to be uh, celebrated, I think, between a lot of the OGs as like finally getting to a place where Starknet has all the capabilities that we wish for it. So
Absolutely, Jorik. Really looking forward to it and to celebrating all together. And what a clear and engaging overview about the Quantum Leap Starknet version, about the great migration to Cairo 1.0, also about what it means, what these changes and future events mean for the Nethermind tools and suite of tools and services. And having said that, as we are gradually coming to the end of this first version of the Nethermind Stark Week at the Stark Cafe, I would like to ask our audience if they would like to ask some questions to Jorik. So feel free to either write a question below the Twitter Space tweet, or by sending us, a request to speak. In the meanwhile, that you could do that, I would like to say hello to somebody that I missed earlier on. So hola Raimon, hola Beja, hello Random, Andrew, Ether.fm, Crypto Ninja, Fanblocks, Julio, and all the others. So let me see if we received any questions. It doesn't seem so. Anyway, you still have time to ask Jorik for a question. I will ask him the last question on my side, and then if I will have received any requests by the end of that answer, I'll will ask Jorik for another additional question. Okay. So Jorik, could you tell us a bit about the long-term future Starknet related developments that you're planning on Nethermind? Obviously, I don't want you to spoiler any important step, but well, tell me what you can say at least.
yeah, sure, no problem. I mean, I kind of hope and pride ourselves on not being a company that works in the dark. So hopefully, I can talk about everything that we're working on. Um, Honestly, the biggest thing on our roadmap and the biggest ticket for I think Starknet from our point of view is decentralization and diversification of the full node implementations in Stack, right? So that's going to be our main focus on the Genius side. I will get through this tomorrow and we'll break it down in amazing detail with Anik, the team lead. But the main point here is that we want to get away from the centralized sequencer model that is the case in most L2s at the moment and start building these things out to a blockchain that has all of the security properties, which are integrity, liveness, like permissionless. I can never say that word. And in order to get there, we need to start working on a P2P model where the data, at least from the sequencer, is shared over P2P, and you can permissionlessly get this data if you like. So we're working on that first, and then we've taken on Kaigo, the Starknet Go tool, and we are hoping to start building things like the Cairo virtual machine in Golang as well, sort of either in collaboration with Lambda class or in lockstep with them. And work on various different parts. For example, a Sierra interpreter for running these things in different environments that don't need traces and so on. So that's that's the biggest this is what Nethermind is going to focus on for the upcoming time. Then Voyager is working on API tooling and making developer experiences much better. I think you'll already see a remarkable improvement on that front, and we have many ideas for how to improve it. So that'll be starting over the next few weeks. I recommend listening to Bart's talk at the Starknet CC. I think I don't know exactly what time, Bart, so maybe you can just tag it here under the chat. And then those are our main two. I want to start building, and I'm not making this as a promise, but this is just an idea that I'm working on, is start building better debug tooling for Cairo 1 at a very high level so that you can see transaction traces and execution very easily, and embedding this into some of the tooling like the Remix plugin. And then the Remix plugin is going to be pushed out to the point where it should be entirely hostable, like you just load the plugin on your laptop, and as long as you keep the page open, it should work locally, right? So that's the direction that that's going to go. And it's also going to have things like the Scarab compiler in it, so you can do large project compilation and have imports, which is currently a feature that's missing. So that's the general roadmap, but there's a lot of exciting things working out here. We're also we have interns working on lots of fun, wacky stuff like Sierra Semantics. We've got interns working on, about to start a collaboration with Dojo on their lower level. We're building a game. So on that front, I literally cannot tell you what's going to come up because it's really you can't imagine the amount of creativity that comes out of people just coming in and doing whatever they want. So.
Amazing, Jorik. I'm very excited to see, what you will come out with in the near future. Also, listening to the fact that you're planning to do something regarding on-chain gaming, and empowering that primitive, which has an amazing and endless potential, makes me, very, very excited about that. And having said that, I was looking for the talk by Nethermind at the Starknet CC, and will be, as you said, by Bart, by Bart at 10 to 2 p.m. So at 1:50 p.m. on the main stage. So so that's if there's anybody who's attending the Starknet CC, first of all, let's come and say hello to me, and then be sure to attend the Nethermind's talk about Voyager at 1:50 p.m. Having said that, we're coming to the end of this. Sorry, I just saw there is somebody who would like to ask you for a question, so I'm gonna approve him. Hello, Beja. Feel free to speak. Feel free to ask Jorik for your question.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Ner, for bringing me on. Good morning, Jorik. I just had a quick question, and I kind of wanted to confirm. So is that how the internship program works? Like the interns are given that freedom to kind of work whatever they want on and have that kind of support?
Yeah. The very short answer is absolutely. Thanks for the question, Beja. But the longer question is, the longer answer is we have a pretty rigorous application process with a very short interview, which analyzes two things. One is either just raw technical ability, and the other is just enthusiasm for crypto. So at any point of your journey through it, we want to take people who are just beginning to learn but show serious enthusiasm, or people who are already deep but just want to know more about Starknet or move on. We've taken people from very diverse backgrounds. And then once you get in the door, we basically ask you, we give you a list of everything that Nethermind does, which is quite expansive and includes projects in the Ethereum space, includes projects in Starknet, includes projects on Eigenlayer, includes projects on Gnosis and a few other things. And then we say, what are your interests? Where would you like to go? Do you want to have a full-time job in crypto afterwards? Are you looking to just explore a particular area of computer science? Do you want to develop your skill in this particular area? And then we try to help you find a project that would either fit you, where you could learn from, or facilitate a project that you'd like to execute on. And I think we actually have quite a few interns here on the call. I think Annie was a previous intern here. 0x is also a previous intern at Nethermind. And they've worked on very, very cool projects. I hope you guys have enjoyed so far. So that's how it works, yeah. If you have something that's outside of what Nethermind does, we're happy to let you work on that and just provide you with people across the stack who could help you out in that project. Or we've even treated a few internships just like continued education. So if you feel like you don't want to contribute to any project, but you'd really like to go deep on ZK proofs, then off you go, we'll help you along. So the hope is that everyone can work on whatever they want, and it's very flat, and you can very quickly switch between projects. And it brings a lot to us as well, because people can teach us new things, or they sometimes inform us about ecosystems that we've in the meantime just kind of forgotten about because we're too focused on what we're doing on the day-to-day. and or they can teach us whatever cool new techniques that they're working with that haven't been used by like the older developer teams, you know. So it's a very like a give and take situation between the interns and us. And then afterwards, at the end of the internship, sometimes you get places at Nethermind, but sometimes we encourage you to go and find work elsewhere, and we do help you like proactively find placements in other companies. So that's the whole process.
That sounds amazing. Thanks for the answer.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, these types of programs I think are crucial for the ecosystem. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Ours was like ridiculously big at one point. We had, I think, at its absolute peak, 66 interns going at the same time. And I think they've gone through around 12K applications. So, and our cohort size, I'm reading this off a list here, is 275 interns, which I think, if I do my maths very quickly, is around 2% entry rate, which sounds really scary, but like we get a lot of like spam applications, and then we get absolutely incredible applications from the actual crypto space and from good universities and people sometimes from the middle of nowhere who just show a lot of enthusiasm. So I would recommend applying for it if you are interested in this, and just recommending to other people. It's a good way. There was a joke on Twitter that like there's two ways to get into crypto. One is through people you know, and the other one is through an internship at Nethermind. And I would love to propagate that further. So.
Thanks a lot, Beja, for this very interesting question. You know, it actually suits the program of this first session of the NethermindStark Week very well. So I'm very grateful for that. Thanks a lot, Beja, and see you on at Starknet CC, because I know that you're coming. And having said that, yes, for all those who would be interested in getting an internship at NethermindStark, make sure to send them a DM or get in touch with with Jorik or with any other team members from Nethermind. And having said that, Jorik, it's been an amazing journey throughout, the Nethermind experience and work around the Starknet scaling solution. And before saying goodbye to you, I'd like to mention the fact that Jorik will be back with us tomorrow, as we are exploring, a bit about the decentralization and the Juno full node developed by Nethermind, and will be joined by other team members from home. Will be joined from Homer and Iron Gauntless, if I remember well. And having said that, I would like to say once again a big thank you to Anneli for helping us organizing this session and the whole NethermindStark Week. They will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. UTC time. Having said that, I would love to say thank you to all the live listeners for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully, and during the whole NethermindStark Week. Thanks a lot once again, and obviously also special thanks goes to the opening guest of this amazing and unforgettable NethermindStark Week. Thanks a lot, Jorik. It's been a pleasure and an amazing Stark Cafe session. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much, Nora. It's been absolutely wonderful to be on here, and I can't wait to see you all tomorrow.
Amazing, Jorik. I'll see you tomorrow. And thanks a lot for coming once again. And so, guys, it's time to close this Stark Cafe session. Remember to share the Starknet vibe, and see you next time. Bye, guys.